What would you do if the person you trusted most, your partner, your rock, your four, just disappeared? And no, you're sitting in a private jet, high above the ocean, thinking you've escaped it all. Your past, your mistakes, the life you promised someone else. You're with someone new, someone younger. Everything looks perfect until the pilot hands you an envelope. No words, just the kind of envelope that shouldn't exist. And the second you open it, your whole world, the one you thought you had under control, starts to fall apart. It's not from the woman sitting next to you, it's from the one you left behind. So ask yourself, what if the real story didn't begin when he left, but when she decided not to step? Stick with me. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about truth. And you're not ready for what comes next. But trust me, you'll want to know. The message had arrived early Thursday morning, just after dawn. Not a phone call, not an argument, just a cold, calculated text from Marcus Ellison to his wife of 11 years. I'm not coming back. No justification. No warmth. Exactly like him. By the time the message reached her, Marcus was already thousands of feet in the air, high above the Caribbean, sipping a flat white in a beige leather seat on board his private jet. The destination? An island so discreet that even satellite maps struggled to find it. The sky outside was painted with muted strokes of lavender and pale blue, a sea of clouds drifting below, untouched and unaware of the chaos he'd left behind. Across from him sat Camilla Royce, her legs tucked elegantly beneath a champagne-colored silk dress that gleamed in the soft light of the cabin. Her chestnut hair was tied into a sleek braid, her lips slightly parted as she flicked through filtered selfies on her phone. Every picture echoed the same curated beauty. Golden light, bare shoulders, designer labels. She was 27, striking, ambitious, and everything Marcus believed he now deserved. She leaned in and pressed a kiss to his cheek, the scent of her perfume, a blend of orchids and high-end opulence, lingering long after her lips left his skin. "Can you believe we're really doing this?" she whispered, her voice rich with sweetness and hunger. "You and me. No lies, no past." Marcus smiled, though it didn't touch his eyes. He wasn't thinking about love, or liberation, or even lust. He was thinking about the next step, the next move. That was what drove him. Strategy, foresight, total control. It was how he had built his empire from code and venture capital, from late nights and ruthless decisions. He never looked back at the things he'd destroyed to get there. Not even when they had names like Rachel. Rachel, his wife, had once been the center of his world, until she wasn't. In the early days, she was the spark behind his ambition, a tech visionary in her own right, but over time she became just another constant. Calm, dependable, predictable. He told himself he needed more intensity, more chaos. Someone who didn't mirror all the things he feared about himself. He started silencing his phone, staying later at the office, inventing conferences, and finally, he wrote a future where Rachel simply didn't exist. He leaned back in his seat, watching Camilla angle her phone to take a picture of her champagne glass. She typed out a caption, "Paradise starts here, where secrets end." What a joke. Marcus knew better. Secrets didn't end, they simply changed hands. As Camilla hit post on her champagne photo, the pilot's voice came over the intercom, smooth, measured. "We'll be landing on the island in approximately 30 minutes. Current temperature is a comfortable 78 degrees. Then came something unexpected. "Mr. Ellison, there's a document that requires your signature. I was instructed to hand it over personally." Marcus furrowed his brow. "Instructed by who?" "Your legal team, sir," the pilot replied. "Said you'd understand." A pause filled the cabin. Marcus turned toward the cockpit as the door eased open. The pilot, a man in his 50s with silvering hair, sharp eyes, and the calm of someone used to high-pressure flights, stepped forward. In his hand was a plain white envelope. Marcus reached for it, but the pilot didn't release it right away. "I was told to deliver it to you directly. Not your assistant, not your guest." The emphasis on guest was so faint it almost went unnoticed. Marcus gave a curt nod and took the envelope. The pilot left without another word. The jet went quiet again. Camilla was still lounging, still scrolling, unaware. Marcus slid a finger under the flap of the envelope, then froze. The handwriting on the front was instantly recognizable. Rachel's. Neat. Intentional. Unshaken. Just like her. He could have laughed, could have ripped it up and tossed it in the trash, but instead he slipped it into his jacket pocket. The plane landed on a runway carved into the coastline of paradise, lush greenery wrapped in turquoise water. Thatch-roofed villas peeked between palm trees like half-kept secrets. The air smelled of sea salt and plumeria. A luxury SUV waited at the end of the strip. The driver wore a white linen shirt, mirrored sunglasses, and said nothing. No ceremony, no fanfare. Marcus and Camila were escorted straight to the villa, floor-to-ceiling glass walls, a private infinity pool, and an ocean so close it played like a lullaby. "This place is unreal," Camila breathed as she stepped onto the balcony. Her arms stretched wide, catching the breeze. Marcus stood behind her, the envelope now warm against his chest. He still hadn't opened it. Later that night, after grilled lobster on the beach and wine that tasted like wealth, he finally did. Camila was in the outdoor shower, humming to herself. The envelope was heavier than it should have been. Inside, one sheet of paper and a flash drive. No salutation, no signature, just a single typed message. In Rachel's exacting print, "I never needed to scream to be heard. You just stopped listening. But I never stopped watching. And now it's your turn to listen." There were coordinates, a date, a line of legal text referencing a power of attorney, and at the bottom, in fading ink, barely legible. By the time you read this, the game has already changed. Marcus's hand trembled, just slightly. The words weren't angry. They weren't a threat. That was what unsettled him most. Rachel had never been impulsive. If she had sent something like this, it meant everything had already been set in motion. He looked out toward the water. Moonlight scattered across the waves, cutting them with thin slashes of silver. For the first time since landing, the island's warmth didn't reach him. Camila came back wrapped in a towel, her skin glowing with steam and soft candlelight. She smiled. "You look intense." He forced a half smile. "Just tired. Long day." She nestled beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "This place feels like it's ours, doesn't it?" He nodded, but his mind wasn't there. It was back in his New York office. Glass walls, boardrooms, closed-door meetings. That was where the world made sense, where control lived, where he belonged. Now there was something shifting under his feet. He couldn't see it yet, couldn't define it, but it was there, like an undertow pulling beneath calm seas, and that frightened him more than any storm he could predict. Because Marcus didn't fear chaos, he feared the unknown that wore silence like a disguise. Marcus rose quietly and walked to the edge of the infinity pool. The ocean stretched endlessly in front of him, his own reflection broken by the surface, distorted. Behind him, Camila giggled at something on her phone. He didn't turn around. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the letter again, and read it for a second time. And this time, it hit him. This envelope wasn't a warning. It was the beginning. Before we dive deeper into this unbelievable story, think about this. What would you do if someone disappeared without a word, and then mid-air a secret dropped into your lap? Comment below. Hit that like and subscribe button to stay on this wild ride. Every bit of support helps keep this channel going. Especially yours. Inside the villa, something had changed. Not the furniture, not the lighting, not even the air conditioning, but the atmosphere. It had shifted, like the hush before a thunderstorm when even the birds go silent. Marcus sat at the edge of the bed. The envelope lay open beside him. The letter, read now for the fourth time, sat neatly folded on the nightstand. But the flash drive? That was no longer on display. He had tucked it into a hidden compartment of his briefcase, buried beneath layers of contracts, sealed folders, and board minutes. No one on this island would ever find it. He hadn't plugged it in. Not yet. That wasn't how he worked. Marcus Ellison didn't leap. He calculated. He prepared. But right now, control, his most prized possession, was slipping. Grain by grain, like sand through clenched fingers. And for a man who'd built empires on precision, the sensation of helpless erosion was almost unbearable. Camila was outside by the pool again, stretched across a lounger, her limbs draped in silk and sunlight. Her limbs were wrapped in luxury, lounging under a sky streaked with burnt orange and soft pink, like the sun was giving one last performance just for them. Camila's laughter drifted through the air, light and unguarded. She had no idea, no suspicion, that the envelope she'd watched Marcus accept so casually had already pierced the surface of their tropical illusion. And Marcus had no intention of telling her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because once secrets escape your mouth, they're no longer yours. He dressed in silence, A white linen shirt buttoned up to the neck, every movement measured, precise. It reminded him of how his father used to prepare for court, sharp, detached, lethal. The mirror showed not a man on vacation, but someone gearing up for something much more calculated. His jaw was clenched, his eyes distant. Beneath the composed exterior pulsed something foreign, uncertainty, the kind that made his fingers twitch just slightly as he adjusted his collar, an involuntary gesture he hadn't done since law school, back when everything still felt like it could fall apart with one misstep. When he stepped outside, Camila looked up and grinned. "Took you long enough," she teased, lifting her glass of Chardonnay. "I was about to finish this bottle without you." He smiled, but the corners of his mouth barely lifted. "Just had a few messages to handle." "You're not working, are you?" she asked, mock offended. "You said this was a no-phone zone." "I turned it off," he lied, slipping the device into his back pocket. "Just tying up a few things." Camila slid her legs off the lounger and approached barefoot, radiant, her silk wrap trailing behind her like mist. She placed her hand on his chest, her touch feather-light, then let her fingers drift down, stopping just short of the briefcase at his feet. "I think I deserve your full attention tonight." "You're getting it," he said, brushing her lips with his. "Just give me one more hour." She arched a brow, half playful, half knowing. That envelope had something to do with it, didn't it? He paused, barely, but long enough for her to catch it. She didn't press. Instead, she kissed the edge of his jaw and whispered, "Fine, 1 hour, but I expect fireworks." She turned and sauntered back toward the lounger, her movements deliberate, as though performing for an invisible audience. Yes, she was beautiful, but she wasn't blind. Marcus had figured that out early. Camila's ambition was subtle, perfumed, polished, dressed in smiles and silk, but it was there. She played the role of the mistress well, but she didn't plan to stay in that role forever. There was a sharpness in her eyes he'd come to recognize, the kind that didn't just want proximity to power, but a seat at the table. And Marcus couldn't help but wonder if she saw this getaway as a honeymoon or a negotiation. Back inside, the door clicked shut behind him, softening the sound of her laughter and the crashing waves just beyond the glass walls. He opened his laptop, typed in the encryption key, and inserted the flash drive. For a few seconds, nothing. Then a folder popped up. Inside, one video file and a set of PDFs, each labeled with dates and legal terminology. He recognized it instantly. Corporate filings, asset reallocations, non-disclosure agreements. His breath hitched slightly as he clicked on the video. The screen went black, then slowly brightened. Rachel. She was seated in what looked like her old office, the one Marcus had designed for her during the early days of their marriage, before he decided she no longer needed one. No makeup, no statement pieces, just a simple navy blouse, her hair swept back into a neat bun. She didn't look broken. She looked prepared. "If you're watching this," she began, her tone composed, "it means I trusted the right people. And it means you left." Marcus leaned in, his forearms resting on his thighs. The villa was silent except for her voice. "I'm not here to beg, or plead, or scream. That part of us ended long ago. I'm here to explain something no one else will. You spent years dissolving me, carefully, methodically, into the background. But I learned something in the quiet. I learned how to observe, how to wait, and eventually, how to move without being seen." She gave a faint smile, and for a second, just a second, Marcus saw her again. Not the accessory he'd discarded, but the strategist he had once built an empire beside. "I found the trust your father tried to bury. I followed the trails through the shell companies you thought I'd never figure out, and I rewrote the will. Your legal team never thought to cross-check it." Marcus's fingers twitched. He hadn't even known she'd gone that deep. "I'm not taking your money," she said, her voice quieter now. "I'm taking your leverage. By now, you've probably noticed certain accounts are inaccessible, and a few key names in your inner circle, silent. That's not random." The screen cut to black. No goodbye, no warning, just conclusion. Marcus stared at the screen, unmoving, his fists clenched, nails pressing into skin. She hadn't just planned this, she had executed it, meticulously. While he was staging a life with Camila, Rachel had been orchestrating something surgical, precise, cold, and absolute. The PDFs confirmed everything. Full transfer of assets from Ellison Maritime Holdings, an entity Marcus had built years ago for tax maneuvering. Another file detailed altered voting shares in one of his tech startups. Those shares now sat under a name he didn't recognize, but the trail led right back to her. Rachel hadn't left him. She'd taken the boardroom with her. That night, Camila lay curled beside him, skin warm, breath soft against his chest. She mumbled something about yoga at sunrise, breakfast on the veranda. Marcus gave a vague response, but his eyes were wide open, fixed on the ceiling fan as it spun slow, hypnotic circles above. And in the silence, he replayed that video in his head, every syllable, every glance, every decision that had led them to this exact moment. Every time Marcus had looked at Rachel and seen only calm, he hadn't realized that calm was the warning. At some point during the night, he got out of bed, walked barefoot across the cool stone floor, and poured himself a drink. He stood on the balcony, glass in hand, gazing at the ocean. Earlier that day, it had felt endless. Now, it just looked hollow. When he returned to the bedroom, the villa's lights were dimmed to a warm glow, and Camila was asleep, peaceful and still. He picked up the letter again. He turned it over. There, on the back, was something he hadn't noticed before. A line, smaller than the rest, nearly missed. You can still choose who you become when no one's watching. He didn't sleep after that. Not really. And what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that just beyond the trees lining their villa's helipad, a man was waiting, silent, still, watching, waiting for daylight. Morning came cloaked in gold. Sunlight spilled through the villa's glass walls, casting long beams across the polished teakwood floors and swaying imported drapes. White orchids stood in perfect symmetry inside a hand-blown glass vase. It should have felt like perfection. The entire place was designed to feel like perfection. But Marcus woke with a heaviness he couldn't shake. His chest felt tight, his mouth dry. And when he sat up, the silence of the room pressed against him, like it knew something he didn't. Camila wasn't beside him. He heard her outside, laughing lightly, probably charming one of the resort staff. She had a way of making herself the center of any room, and she succeeded, effortlessly. Marcus rubbed his eyes, stood, and padded to the sink. He splashed cold water on his face, then stared at his reflection. Same angular jawline, same controlled expression the press always loved. But the eyes were different, duller. A small fracture had begun to form just behind the surface, barely visible, but there. He dressed slowly, movements practiced but hollow. A pale blue shirt, top button open, sleeves rolled once. He combed his hair, spritzed cologne on his wrists, then stepped outside. Camila sat at the veranda table, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. A black swimsuit peeked through her sheer cover-up, her legs crossed, sunglasses perched atop her head. Her skin shimmered in the morning light. She looked up as he approached and tilted her head. "You look tense," Camila said. "Didn't sleep?" Marcus shook his head, reaching for the espresso on the tray beside her. "Couldn't turn my brain off." "You want to talk about it?" "No," he answered too fast, then softened his tone. "I'll be fine. Just need a little time." Camila's lips curled into that half-smile she saved for moments. She didn't quite believe him, but was willing to pretend otherwise. "All right," she said, sipping her coffee again. "Well, you'll be thrilled to hear the staff says we're the only guests on the entire island." She grinned, eyes sparkling. "Can you imagine? This whole place, just us? It's kinda sexy." Marcus gave a faint smile, but his mind wasn't on her words. The letter, the flash drive, the envelope, they spun in his head like vultures circling a carcass. What else had Rachel done? What moves had she made while he'd been out here playing architect with ambition and desire? He stood and wandered down the private stone path that curved along the cliff's edge. The breeze was stronger here, cooler, laced with salt and hibiscus. Waves thundered against the rocks below, endless and unconcerned. His phone remained off, but something hung in the air, the stillness after detonation, the breath before collapse. Then he saw it, another envelope, slipped beneath the villa's door. This one different. No name, no seal, no sign of anyone passing, no sound, no knock. Marcus bent down and picked it up. It wasn't paper inside. It was a photo, one image. Him and Camila, walking the beach the day before, smiling, laughing, too clear, too precise. Someone had taken it without being seen. On the back, written in a different hand. "Not everything on this island belongs to you." Marcus stood still. The wind tugged at his shirt. The ocean roared beneath him. He scanned the trees, the rooftops, the sand. Nothing. His heart started pounding. Not from fear, but instinct. The same instinct that used to steer him through hostile takeovers and billion-dollar deals. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He returned to the villa. Camila was still lounging, blissfully unaware. He slipped the envelope in his pocket and forced a calm he didn't feel. "I think we should skip the spa today," he said, sounding casual. She looked up, surprised. "Why?" "It's already booked." "Just not in the mood," he said. "Let's stay in." Her brows knit. "Marcus, what's going on?" He sat beside her, reached for her hand. "Do you trust me?" She let out a nervous laugh. "Why are you asking me that?" "Because I need to know, right now." She hesitated, then gently, "Yes, I trust you." He kissed her forehead. Good. He didn't tell her about the photo, or that he'd just spoken to someone on a secure satellite line, his assistant, Raymond, who'd told him that 3 of his investment accounts had been frozen, or that one of his legal teams had gone completely dark. He didn't mention that Rachel's name had surfaced in a private intelligence database. He simply sat there, holding Camila's hand, as the island's sun climbed higher, its light spilling across a morning that no longer felt like paradise. It never should have shown up there, tucked inside the ownership documents of a shell company Marcus had used for burying international capital transfers. This wasn't a quiet divorce, it was an assault. Later that afternoon, the villa's landline rang, a phone neither of them had touched since arrival. Marcus answered. Silence. Then a male voice, American accent, calm, composed. "Your shadow's catching up to you." Click. Marcus slammed the receiver down. Camila stepped out of the bedroom, towel wrapped around her hair. "Was that room service?" He nodded. "Wrong villa." She didn't believe him, but she didn't press. Not yet. By sunset, Marcus was pacing near the edge of the pool. He needed clarity, a next move, proof. He retrieved his locked laptop, typed in his password, and pulled up the documents again, scrolling, cross-checking, dates, signatures, corporate structures, and then he saw it. Buried in a recent filing for an offshore investment account, one he'd used to discreetly funnel real estate profits into foreign luxury ventures, a new executive officer had been listed. L.A. Ellison. Rachel Alexandra Ellison. He slammed the laptop shut. That account had been untraceable. Private, sanitized, invisible to regulators. She wasn't retaliating, she was unraveling the entire illusion. And in that unraveling, she wasn't just stripping away money or assets, she was dismantling the identity Marcus had so carefully constructed, piece by piece, as if peeling off the facade until only the raw, unguarded truth remained. Outside, Camila was posing again, camera angled toward the golden horizon. "You've been acting strange," she called out, not turning around. "Is this about work? Or is this about her?" Marcus's voice was lower than she expected. "What if it's both?" She turned sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" He looked directly at her. "There are things happening, things I didn't anticipate, and they're moving fast." Camila approached him slowly, her gaze narrowing. "You said we came here to escape all that. You said you'd left everything behind." "I thought I had," he replied. "But I didn't leave it. It followed me." The wind shifted, brushing strands of hair across her cheek. "Marcus, is someone after you?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know this. We're not alone on this island." And just then, the lights flickered. Not out, just once. Then again. A slow, intentional blink. The villa ran on an isolated generator, not connected to any grid. Power didn't glitch unless someone made it glitch. Marcus pulled the photo from his pocket and handed it to her. Camila stared at it. The color drained from her face. "When did you get this?" "This morning," he said, "and I don't think it'll be the last." She looked up, her voice sharper now. "Are you going to tell me what's going on? Or am I supposed to keep learning through anonymous threats?" He hesitated, calculating always, but the confidence wasn't there anymore. For once, the man who always had a strategy, a pivot, a carefully rehearsed line, was empty. Finally, he said, "Rachel sent me something. A message? She's coming after me in ways I didn't expect. She's not just walking away, she's cutting everything out from under me." Camila's jaw tightened. "And you didn't think I needed to know?" "I was trying to protect you." "No, you were trying to protect yourself." Marcus didn't deny it. Camila stepped back. "So what now?" He looked toward the horizon, where the sky was already turning violet with the approach of night. "Now, we find out what else she's done. And who helped her. Because Rachel Ellison may have sent the letter, but she hadn't done this alone. And Marcus had just realized something far more dangerous than betrayal. He didn't know who was watching, or why. By the time dawn brushed the sky in pale pinks and streaks of amber, Marcus was still awake. He hadn't slept. Couldn't. The villa was silent, the kind of silence that presses into your eardrums like deep water. Heavy, still, unsettling. Camila had fallen asleep on the couch after their argument. Her head leaned back, a blanket tangled around her legs. Her phone buzzed softly on the side table, an alert from one of her social accounts. She didn't stir. Marcus stood at the glass wall, staring out toward the edge of the island where sea and sky blurred into one endless, faceless horizon. He no longer saw luxury. He saw a cage made of silk and strategy, the kind built for men like him, who thought themselves untouchable until the trap closed without a sound. He replayed the events of the past 24 hours again and again. The envelope, the photograph, the voice on the phone, the flickering lights. Each detail whispered the same thing. This wasn't paradise anymore. This was surveillance. And whoever was behind it wasn't just watching. They were pulling strings, calculating, precise. Like chess players moving in silence while he mistook the board for a game of chance. The illusion of privacy was gone. This wasn't retreat. It was exposure. And Marcus Ellison didn't do exposed. He turned away from the window and grabbed his laptop. The files on that flash drive still haunted him, but he needed more. Hard data, timelines, names, anything to prove this wasn't paranoia. That Rachel had dug deeper than he ever allowed himself to imagine. He connected to the secure network, or tried to. The cursor blinked once, then the screen went black. No error code, no restart, just silence. He tried rebooting. Nothing. Power light dead, total shutdown, like something had gutted it from the inside. He checked the outlet. The adapter, all connected. Then he removed the flash drive, held it in his hand, and something occurred to him. The drive hadn't just delivered a message, it had delivered something else. Something hidden. A kill switch. Embedded code. Rachel hadn't merely sent him a warning. She'd sabotaged his tools. Marcus clenched the laptop in one hand and threw it across the room. It hit the far wall with a dull crack, the screen shattering into jagged black shards. The sound jolted Camila awake. She sat up with a gasp, hair tousled, mascara streaked. "What the hell was that?" she cried. Marcus didn't answer. He was already pacing. Then he stopped. "They bricked my system. Laptop's fried. Everything's gone." "Who did?" she asked. "I don't know. Rachel, her people, someone." He looked at her. "But we're not alone here, Camila. That much I know." She stood now, wrapping the blanket tighter around her. "You're scaring me." "Good," he snapped. Then, catching himself, he softened. "You should be scared. This isn't a vacation anymore." Camila moved closer, slower. "Okay then, let's leave. We have the jet, we go back, we handle it from the mainland." Marcus shook his head. "If we leave now, it's public. That means press. That means leaks. Right now, it stays private until I know how far this goes." Camila stared at him like he'd become someone else. "You care more about optics than about us?" "I care about not giving Rachel the front page." "You think this stops at one flash drive?" "No, this is theater. She wants something more. She wants control. She wants me unstable, and it's working." Camila muttered something under her breath. Marcus ignored her. He reached for his phone, still powered off. He turned it on. No signal, no buzz, no notifications. The screen glitched, flickered, and then black, just like the laptop. Dead. He looked up at Camila. "Give me your phone." She hesitated. "Why? Just do it." She unlocked it and handed it over. Marcus opened the settings, scrolled to the Wi-Fi menu, and stopped. The villa's network name had changed. It no longer read Villa Private. It read, "Nice view from up here, ME." His blood turned cold. Marcus handed the phone back without a word. Camila stared at the screen, her face drained of color. "What does that mean?" "It means whoever's behind this," he said quietly. "They're not guessing anymore." They stepped outside. The sky was fully awake now, sun climbing higher, light pouring across palm trees that swayed in the breeze. Everything still looked perfect. Too perfect. Postcard blue, gentle waves, birds chirping. But Marcus knew better. This was a stage, and someone else was directing the scene. He scanned the tree line, the ridges, the rooftops of nearby villas that were supposed to be unoccupied. Then he saw it, a flicker of motion, barely a shimmer. Atop the maintenance structure near the edge of the compound. A figure, shadowed, holding something, maybe binoculars, maybe something more. But when Marcus blinked, the figure was gone. He grabbed Camilla's arm. "Get inside. Lock everything. Now." She obeyed. Once back in the villa, he reached for the landline. No answer from the concierge. He tried again. Voicemail. He hung up and dialed a private line. Direct access to a man named Ellison, one of Marcus's off-the-record security operatives. It rang once, twice, then, "Ellison." "It's Ellison. I need a team dispatched to." "I know," Ellison cut him off. "We've been tracking the chatter. But I have to ask, why the hell are you still on that island?" Marcus gripped the phone tighter. "Tracking? What chatter?" "Encrypted signals, private forums, shadow boards. Your name is coming up in places it shouldn't. Some of the chatter ties directly to Rachel's new LLC." Marcus froze. "New what?" "She's making moves. Quiet but precise. That private equity account you buried in Bermuda? She just filed a secondary acquisition through a shadow affiliate. Same affiliate that holds controlling interest in Ellison Water Holdings." Marcus's knees nearly gave out. That fund was locked. Impeccable. Or so he thought. "I'm pulling you out," Ellison said. "Your location's compromised. Surveillance has been active for at least 72 hours. By who? We don't know. Could be her team. Could be third party. But it's organized, sophisticated, and very, very quiet." Marcus exhaled, slow and sharp. "How long until you get here?" 12 hours. Until then, sit tight. Don't trust anyone. Don't touch your devices." Then a pause. "And Marcus, next time you fake your own exile, maybe don't bring your mistress to one of the only islands in the hemisphere with full-spectrum satellite access to every drone between here and Lisbon." The line went dead. Marcus stood still. 12 hours. It might as well have been forever. Camilla stepped into the room, her voice shaky, her body tense. "You need to tell me the truth." "All of it," Marcus nodded. Then, slowly he began. The funds, the aliases, the companies, the war. Trusts, the marriage that had come undone like a slow, silent avalanche. Marcus told her everything. The letter, the flash drive, the embedded kill switch, the hidden asset trails now quietly rerouted under Rachel's name. He watched Camilla's face tighten with each sentence. When he finished, she didn't speak for a long while. Then finally, in a quiet voice, "You told me she was weak. I thought she was. You said she signed it all away. She was supposed to." Camilla crossed her arms. "You didn't leave your wife, Marcus. You underestimated her. And now, she's not just walking away. She's rewriting your empire with her name on the blueprints." Marcus had no reply. That night, they sat in silence. The island around them dimmed into black. No staff returned. No dinner was delivered. No lights in any other villa flicked on. The wind howled louder than before, rattling the palms. The security gate at the far end of the compound stayed shut. Motion sensors blinked like stars about to go out. Marcus stood at the edge of the veranda, staring out into darkness. The air felt denser now, charged, watched. Every breath felt borrowed, as if the island itself was holding back a truth neither of them were ready to speak aloud. And somewhere beyond the trees and sea, Rachel was still watching. Still calculating. Still winning. Camilla Ray knew how to play a role. The soft laugh at the right moment. The subtle hand on a wrist during power dinners. The perfectly timed absence that made Marcus chase. She knew how to be seen, without drawing threat. Desired, never dismissed. Charming, never forgettable. But she wasn't born to be a background character. She had her own script, and for the first time, she was rewriting it live. And this time, she wasn't waiting for a cue. She was writing her lines in real time, penning her escape in silence and strategy. The night Marcus told her everything, she didn't cry, didn't panic. She listened, and something inside her shifted. Her instincts, already whispering for days, now roared, and she started making moves of her own. The next morning, Marcus was back on the phone with Ellison, pacing the veranda, voice low, sharp. Camilla sat nearby, pretending not to listen. But she heard everything. She sipped her tea and stared out at the ocean. But every word Marcus said carved itself into her thoughts. "Freeze it if you have to," he snapped. "I don't care what headlines it sparks. I want control back. Now." He was unraveling, and she could see it. The man who once stood above boardrooms like a monarch now looked like he was bracing for the blade. When he vanished into the office again, digging through folders, obsessed with finding a way to reverse what Rachel had done, Camilla reached for her phone. She locked the bathroom door and dialed a number from memory. The voice that answered was cool, feminine, with a trace of amusement. Well, the woman said, you finally called. I need to know if it's true, Camila said. All of it. It's worse than you think, came the reply, and it's almost over. Camila hesitated. You said I wouldn't be in danger. You're not, the voice assured, unless you're still choosing him. Silence. Then Camila asked, how much does he know about me? A pause. Not nearly enough, the woman said. You know that better than anyone. The call ended. No goodbyes. Camila looked at her reflection in the mirror. Same face Marcus once called the future. Same body he paraded at rooftop galas, on yachts, in closed-door negotiations, where women were bargaining chips and beauty was capital. But what lingered beneath the surface now wasn't just ambition. It was resolve, tempered and sharpened by years of pretending. But what he hadn't understood, what men like Marcus never understood, was that Camila was playing a longer, deeper game. The world thought she was decoration. In truth, she was surveillance in stilettos. And now, the time for observing had ended. That afternoon, while Marcus was cursing at the satellite phone provider about restoring secure channels, Camila opened his briefcase. She knew the code. Of course she did. She found the sealed folder, one he'd been oddly protective of since they landed. Inside, documentation of a covert sale, a private art collection once held under Ellison Holdings. But the listed beneficiary wasn't Marcus. Wasn't even one of his shell entities. It was a foreign trust, under a name Camila remembered seeing on a call sheet at a Manhattan law firm months ago. A name she'd circled in red once and never forgot. She took photos, clean, fast, then returned everything exactly as it had been. When Marcus reappeared minutes later, she was poolside, red bikini, paperback novel in hand. She hadn't opened the book until this morning. Ellison's pushing for early extraction, he said, lighting a cigarette. We'll be off this island before dawn. Camila looked up and smiled. Good. Marcus squinted. You've been quiet. I'm still processing. Trust me. She nodded. Of course. Marcus studied her for a moment, looking for cracks. But Camila had rehearsed this expression too many times. Too well. He leaned in and kissed her, a shallow press of lips, then turned and stepped away to take another call. That night, as the wind howled through the trees and the generator flickered again, Camila sat alone on the veranda. Her phone buzzed. A message. No words, just a number. But she knew it. It belonged to the voice on the other end of the call from 2 days ago. She opened her encrypted app and uploaded the photos from Marcus's briefcase. Then she typed one sentence. He'll be gone by morning. The reply came almost instantly. And you? Camila stared at the screen. She thought of everything. The nights Marcus left her waiting in foreign hotel lobbies, the way he made her smile on cue, the promises that expired the moment they were spoken, the ring that never came. She typed, I'm choosing the future. Behind that sentence lay decades of silent compromises, of dreams shelved in the name of alliance. Meanwhile, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept rechecking files, refreshing dashboards that refused to load, dialing contacts who didn't answer. He opened the villa's safe. Inside, backup drives, a roll of emergency cash, a pistol. He didn't mention it to Camila. Didn't think he had to. Because admitting fear felt like surrender. And admitting distrust felt like betrayal. But a sliver of doubt had started to take root. What if this wasn't just Rachel? What if the entire escape was the trap, the island, the affair, the silence? At 3:13 a.m., Camila stepped out of the villa barefoot, walking down the path to the beach. The moon cast a silver blur over the dark tide. She waited. Then from the edge of the tree line, a figure emerged. A man, dressed in black, expressionless. He handed her a small envelope. She took it without a word, turned, and walked back. Marcus heard the door creak open. He sat upright, heart hammering. Camila walked in, wind-tossed, face unreadable. Where were you? He asked. Just needed air, she said. He didn't believe her. But he didn't ask again. The envelope now sat quietly in her purse. She would give it to him tomorrow. Not today, because timing was everything. And Camila Ray wasn't just playing a role in this story. She was writing the ending. An hour before dawn, a hush fell over the island like a veil, slow and ominous. Waves moved without rhythm beneath thick clouds rolling in from the southeast. Not a storm that shouted, one that crept in. It was the kind that whispered consequences. You could feel it creeping into your bones before you knew what was coming. Marcus Ellison stood at the edge of the terrace, a glass of something dark in his hand. The weight of the past week had shifted from his shoulders to his spine, as if gravity had taken it personally. He was already dressed. Gray slacks, white shirt, sleeves rolled. He hadn't slept. Again. Sleep no longer felt like refuge. Time itself felt warped, each second drawn out, stretched thin by expectation, by dread. Behind him, the villa stayed cloaked in darkness, save for a soft glow from the kitchen lamp. Camila hadn't stirred, or if she had, she'd made sure not to show it. But Marcus could feel the shift. Her rhythm had changed, movements too intentional, words too polished. He knew people. Knew the way someone recalculated behind their eyes, deciding whether to lean in or walk away. But he wasn't ready to confront it. Not yet. Because if she was involved, if she'd been more than just an accessory to this slow collapse, then that meant everything he thought he controlled had been fiction from the start. It meant the empire he'd built wasn't just crumbling. It had been infiltrated at the root, and the rot had been smiling beside him all along. He turned from the ocean, walked inside, poured himself another drink. Extraction was set for just after sunrise. Ellison had promised silence, no noise, no heat. 2 men, 1 chopper, fast and clean. But Marcus didn't trust promises anymore. Not Ellison's, not Camila's, not even his own. His empire, once laid out across LED screens and polished tables, now felt like it was built on sand. And someone had pulled the tide in. And in that tide, truth and illusion churned together. Indistinguishable. A sound broke the silence. Soft, bare feet over wood. Camila appeared in the doorway, wrapped in silk, her hair pulled up, her skin glowing beneath the lamp. Expression unreadable. Equal parts concern and calculation. "You're up early," she said gently. "Didn't sleep." She crossed the room, graceful as ever, and perched on the edge of the sofa. "I didn't either. Wind kept me up." Marcus studied her face. "You went for a walk last night." She didn't flinch. "Yes, I needed air. Felt like I couldn't breathe in here." "You were gone a while." She met his eyes. "Are you accusing me of something?" He said nothing, just sipped his drink. The silence between them stretched, not passive, not peaceful, but loaded, like the last second before a detonation. Then Camila reached into her robe pocket and pulled out an envelope. She held it between 2 fingers, light as paper. But they both knew better. "I was going to wait until we were in the air," she said, "but you don't trust me, and I'm done pretending we're still playing the same game." Marcus took it slowly. "What is this?" "Open it." He did. Inside, a single photo, folded twice. A scan, a marriage certificate. Not his and Camila's, not even his and Rachel's, but the signature at the bottom was unmistakable. His, and beside it, Tessa Mendez. A name Marcus hadn't seen in 12 years. The date, 6 months before his wedding to Rachel. He stared at the seal, then at Camila. She crossed one leg over the other. "You married her when you were 23, Vegas, drunk. You said it was annulled." "It wasn't." Marcus stared at the paper, lips parted. "That's not possible." "It is," Camila replied. "I verified it." "Why would you?" "Because I was asked to," she cut in. Silence thickened the air like fog. Marcus stepped back, jaw tight. "You've been working with her?" "With Rachel," Camila confirmed, steady. "Not from the beginning?" "But eventually." The words hit like a slap, cold, clean, final. "I gave you everything," Marcus muttered. "No," she said. "You gave me whatever made you feel powerful. That's not the same." He set the envelope on the table and moved to the window, heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. "Was any of it real?" "Some of it. But you were never going to give me more than crumbs," she continued. "You loved me the way you loved your limited edition watches. New, expensive, replaceable. You never imagined I'd be anything but part of the decor." Marcus turned to her, eyes sharp. "Then why stay?" "Because the longer I stayed, the closer I got to the real you," Camila said, "and the more I understood what she was fighting for." "So what now?" he asked. "You hand me over? Put a bow on it?" "No," she said. "You're not a prize. You're a lesson." She stepped forward, calm. "Rachel didn't want revenge. She wanted truth. She wanted closure. You never gave her that. You gave her silence, disrespect, lies. And now she gave you the same." Marcus clenched his fists. "This is war." Camila stood. "No, it's accountability." Outside, the distant thrum of a helicopter broke the stillness. Right on schedule, Marcus turned, grabbed his small suitcase. "You still coming?" Camila looked at him, long and hard. "No," he froze. I said I'd help her," she interrupted. "I never said I'd go down with you." His breath caught. "You think she wins?" You think you win? Camila offered the smallest smile. I think no one wins. But some people walk away freer. She turned and walked back down the hallway, didn't look back. Marcus stood alone at the door. The chopper's blades grew louder. The villa around him, once a monument to luxury, now felt like a tomb. Every lie, every move, every betrayal had led exactly here. And for the first time since he was 23 and drunk in Vegas, Marcus Ellison didn't know who he was, without the power he'd layered around himself. He stepped outside, and the island finally began to let him go. The flight off the island was nothing like the arrival. No champagne, no soft laughter above the hum of engines, just the wind and silence. This time, Marcus sat alone in the back of the helicopter, hands clenched tightly in his lap, posture locked, eyes fixed on the shrinking island behind them. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. The pilot had offered only one line. Mr. Ellison, we'll be touching down in 75 minutes. Marcus didn't need pleasantries. He needed control. And for the first time in over a decade, he had no idea where to find it. Below, the ocean stretched like an abyss, dark, indifferent, endless, roiling beneath invisible winds. He used to see freedom in those waves. Now he saw exposure, judgment, the merciless echo of a man who built his kingdom from secrets and smoke. With every mile between him and the island, the weight of what had truly happened pressed harder on his chest. Rachel hadn't just won. She'd done it quietly, surgically, with a grace he'd long ago stopped believing she had. In Camila, she had delivered the last blow, wrapped in silk, voice calm, like someone who knew the story was never hers to finish, only to redirect. When the helicopter touched down on the mainland, two black SUVs waited by the helipad, one for Marcus, the other empty. Just protocol, but the redundancy stung. A silent reminder of what had slipped through his fingers. Once flanked by motorcades and media handlers, he now rode alone. Not followed by paparazzi, but by consequences. The driver opened the door, didn't speak. Marcus stepped in. The door closed like the period on a sentence he hadn't written. The city blurred past the tinted glass, skyscrapers, traffic, neon, all indifferent. His phone, finally powered on, vibrated furiously with alerts, texts, missed calls. He ignored most of them, just scrolled, thumb hovering over familiar names, board members, attorneys, finance officers, most had quiet 2 days ago. In his encrypted app, one message blinked unread, from Andrew, his assistant. She's meeting with the board tomorrow. She has the votes. 7 words. That rewrote everything. Rachel hadn't gone to the press, hadn't sued, hadn't screamed. She'd done something worse. She made people, his people, doubt. Made them ask if they still needed Marcus Ellison at all. And now tomorrow she would walk into the room he once ruled and decide whether his empire would bear his name or just the echo of it. By the time the SUV rolled into the underground garage of his penthouse, Marcus was already loosening his tie. The elevator ride felt endless, each floor a silent countdown to what waited above. When the doors opened, Marcus stepped into silence. No staff. No security. Just rooms, spacious, pristine, filled with furniture too expensive to ever feel like home. He moved through the halls like a shadow, a ghost retracing the footprint of a life he no longer recognized. Every photograph, gone. Every drawer, empty. It was still his property, but it didn't feel like his anymore. In the study, one file lay neatly placed on the glass-top desk, a single note on top, written in Rachel's familiar, exacting hand. I left this here because I knew you'd come back. Read it, or don't. But either way, the silence between us ends here. He opened it. Inside, pages of precision, internal call transcripts, forensic audits, a complete breakdown of the Shell Trust's failure. Data only someone with deep access could have pulled. Each line was a surgical strike. No wasted words, no missed details. It was the anatomy of his downfall, dissected with the cold clarity of someone who once loved him. But what stopped him, what knocked the air from his lungs, was the last page. A letter. Handwritten. Marcus, I never wanted to destroy you. That's not what this was. You built something extraordinary, but you did it by stepping over people, by treating loyalty like a currency and love like a contract you could rewrite. I loved you once, truly, but over time you stopped seeing me as a partner. You saw me as a brand extension, a name that looked good beside yours in headlines. In the silence you left me with, I learned things. I learned power without principle is just fear in a better suit. I learned money buys everything, except peace. and I learned you never imagined I could learn any of that. That was your mistake. You made me invisible. Now I hold the spotlight. You'll survive this. Men like you always do. But don't confuse survival with victory. This wasn't revenge. It was redefinition. Rachel Marcus leaned back in the leather chair. The letter trembled in his hands. He didn't move, didn't speak. The words cut through something deeper than pride, deeper than betrayal, because they were true. Every sentence was a mirror, and what he saw staring back wasn't a victim. It was the architect of his own collapse. His empire hadn't been stolen. It had been surrendered, one calculated compromise at a time. And now he was sitting in the echo of his own choices. This wasn't just the collapse of a marriage. It wasn't the fallout of an affair. It was the slow, deliberate unmasking of a man who believed the world could be bought. And who had just learned, too late, that some debts aren't paid in dollars. They're paid in dignity. Behind him, sunlight crept through the windows, long golden lines painting across the floors. A new day had begun. But Marcus Ellison was no longer the man who once ruled it. The boardroom had never felt like this. Quiet, tense, watchful. Like the room itself knew something irreversible had already happened. And so did he. His reflection fractured across the dark glass windows that spanned the west wall of the conference room. The skyline of Chicago loomed beyond, sleek, indifferent. The city, unaware that an empire was about to shift hands, not through scandal or headlines, but through signatures and silent nods. Around him the board sat in tense silence, suits pressed, eyes averted, documents open, screens aglow. But not one of them looked at Marcus. These were the same men and women who once forged entire strategies from the steel of his ambition. Now they resembled jurors, gathered to cast a verdict they had already agreed upon. They didn't want to say it out loud. He wore his sharpest navy suit, the one he'd saved for major press calls and foreign negotiations. Today, it felt like a shroud. His tie, immaculate and suffocating. He had come ready to fight. Prepared rebuttals, charts, backup leverage. He thought presence still mattered. He thought he still mattered. But the silence in the room was louder than any defense. He could feel it, a collective shift, subtle but final, the weight of consensus pressed into every averted glance. But what no spreadsheet could predict, what no war room could counter, was this. Their eyes no longer lit up when he spoke. They didn't need him. And that realization landed harder than any public ousting. Across the table, in the seat he once occupied with ease, sat Rachel. Poised, radiant. A cream suit with gold accents, hair pinned back into a tight, no-nonsense knot. She didn't smirk, didn't gloat. She simply waited, pen in hand, notepad at the ready, composure worn like armor. The same composure she had once worn while being dismissed, overlooked, and replaced. Now it held the room. She no longer asked to be heard. She expected it. Her silence, once survival, had become strength. And Marcus couldn't look away. The chairman cleared his throat. "We've reviewed the documentation submitted by Ms. Ellison's legal team," he began. "After extensive investigation of her fiduciary role and the verified breach of conduct by Mr. Ellison, specifically non-disclosure violations and misuse of holdings within the Ellison Trust, the board recommends a transfer of controlling shares to Ms. Ellison." Marcus didn't blink. He'd prepared for this. But preparation couldn't mute pain. There was no outburst, no deflection, only the cold realization that his name was no longer enough to command a room. "You'll retain a seat as strategic advisor," one board member offered, voice low like a condolence. "It's not a demotion, Marcus. It's a structural realignment. The foundation remains yours, but Miss Ellison will have signatory authority across all operations. It's cleaner this way." He nodded once. No words. Across the room, Rachel rose. "If I may," she said. The chairman gestured toward the floor. She stepped around the table, past the faces who once ignored her voice, who now looked to her for direction. Then she turned, facing Marcus. "I didn't come here to destroy what you built," she said evenly. "I came here to stop being erased from it." She said, "I came to reclaim what I helped build from the beginning, before the jets, before the headlines, before the silence." Her voice didn't waver. "I was the one who drafted the first proposal. I was the one who signed the first lease on the office you now treat like a monument. I stood next to you when there was nothing, and I listened to you when you believed you were everything." A pause. "But then you forgot. You rewrote the story. You erased me. So I rewrote it again. Marcus looked up, jaw clenched, something sharp behind his eyes. You think this makes you better than me? No, Rachel said. It makes me free. He scoffed, half bitter, half broken. You don't even know what to do with all this. You spent so long chasing it, you forgot how much it costs. I know exactly what it costs, she replied softly. I paid for it in silence for years, and I'm done paying. She returned to her seat and picked up the pen. The room was silent, save for the sound of ink meeting paper. Marcus didn't move. He sat frozen as his empire crossed the table line by line. Not with fury, not with scandal, but with signatures. When the meeting adjourned, no one lingered. Board members nodded with vague professionalism, eyes low. He didn't rise. His hands remained pressed against the table, white-knuckled. When only he and Rachel remained, she stood, walked toward the door, but paused. She turned, one last look. I didn't do this to punish you, she said. I did it to remember who I am. He looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time in years, he didn't see an ex-wife or an opponent or a relic of his past. He saw a woman who had risen, by force, by grit, from beneath his shadow. And she was taller now because of it. She left without another word. He stayed behind. Later that afternoon, Marcus returned to the penthouse. It no longer felt like home. It felt like a museum of someone else's ego. He tugged off his tie, let it fall to the floor. The skyline was still visible from the massive windows, but for the first time he didn't approach them. He poured a drink, but didn't touch it. He sat on the floor, legs stretched, phone face up beside him. The city moved on outside. His notifications buzzed. Calls from attorneys, messages from old partners, voicemails from media contacts, but none from Amara. And none from Rachel. No one who mattered then. As Marcus scrolled aimlessly, a new message came through. It was a video. No sender. He tapped it. On screen, a camera angle from the island villa. A hidden feed, Amara speaking directly into the lens. If you're watching this, you already know. I didn't do it to hurt you, Marcus. I did it to remind you that you're not invincible, that you don't own people, and that eventually, even the ones who love you stop waiting for you to change. She smiled, not cruelly. Just done. Don't try to find me, there's nothing left to fix. The screen went black. Marcus sat in the silence. There was nothing left to say. The world he had built didn't end with scandal or noise. It collapsed with silence. And somewhere, outside the walls of glass and wealth, life moved forward, untouched by the fall of a man who once believed he was untouchable. The city outside exhaled, and for the first time in his life, Marcus Blackwell finally understood what it meant to be alone. So the story is over. Our wonderful friends, are you still here, even now? If you are, that means something in this story spoke to you. Maybe it was a feeling, a moment, a truth you didn't expect to face. And I want you to know, that matters. You matter. What we just witnessed wasn't just the fall of a man or the rise of a woman. It was a mirror held up to the parts of us we often hide, the parts that crave control, the parts that fear being forgotten, the parts that hurt but never say so out loud. Marcus thought power would protect him, that control would keep him safe. But what he lost wasn't just an empire, it was connection, intimacy, truth. Rachel didn't seek revenge, she sought remembrance of who she was, of what they had, and of what she refused to lose, herself. And Camila? She reminded us that appearances don't define worth, that sometimes the person in the background is the one who's been holding the map the whole time. This story leaves us with a powerful message. We can't run from the people we hurt. We can't escape the weight of silence. And most of all, we can't fake peace. It has to be earned. As the mystic Khalil Gibran once wrote, out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. Maybe your scars don't show, but they're there. And they make you strong, not broken. So if you're still here, let me ask you, what truth are you ready to face? Who are you when the lights go out and no one's watching? You don't have to answer now, just don't forget to ask. If this story stirred something in you, if it helped you reflect, release, or reclaim a piece of yourself, then do one simple thing: like, share, and subscribe. Not just for us, but for someone else out there who might need this message too. Thanks for being here. We're just getting started.